What happens when the world's most dangerous predator crosses paths with humans? Grizzly bears, known for their strength and aggression, have been involved in some of the most horrifying attacks in recent history. These encounters remind us that even the most remote places aren't free from danger. From a small-town police station to the rugged forests of Montana, these powerful predators leave devastation in their wake. How do people survive when faced with such raw, unstoppable power? In these chilling accounts, individuals from all walks of life find themselves at the mercy of the grizzly's ferocity. These 6 harrowing stories will make you think twice before venturing into bear territory. On January 6, 2025, in the remote Siberian town of Verkhoyansk, a small police station stood surrounded by thick forests and vast stretches of icy terrain. It was an ordinary winter day with temperatures well below freezing, as the town's handful of officers carried out their duties. Among them were Sergeant Alexei Ivanov and Officer Dmitry Petrov, 2 dedicated men who had served their community for years. Sergeant Ivanov, a 42-year-old father of 2, was known for his calm demeanor and sharp instincts. He had spent most of his career working in the harsh Siberian climate, keeping the town safe from both human and wildlife threats. Officer Petrov, a 28-year-old with a passion for wildlife, had joined the force 3 years earlier. He often volunteered for outdoor patrols, undeterred by the dangers of the wilderness. That morning, Ivanov and Petrov were preparing to head out for routine patrols. The station was modest, with just a few rooms and a small yard where vehicles were parked. Food scraps from the station's kitchen had been carelessly discarded nearby, attracting wildlife in the past. However, no one expected what was about to happen. Around midday, Ivanov spotted movement near the station's perimeter. 2 massive grizzly bears, each over 8 feet tall, emerged from the trees. Initially, they seemed to be sniffing around the garbage. Ivanov radioed a warning to his colleagues and stepped outside cautiously to assess the situation. Suddenly, one of the bears charged at him, closing the distance in seconds. As Ivanov tried to retreat, the bear lunged, striking him with its massive paw and throwing him to the ground. The second bear followed, dragging Ivanov into the snow. His screams echoed through the icy air as the bears overpowered him, leaving him gravely injured. Inside the station, Petrov and the other officers heard the commotion and rushed to the entrance. By the time they reached Ivanov, the bears had already begun to move toward the building. The flimsy wooden door proved no match for their strength. The bears broke through, attacking Petrov as he tried to fend them off. He was mauled severely, sustaining deep wounds across his arms and chest. Another officer attempting to assist was thrown aside by the second bear, suffering a broken leg and bruises. Chaos erupted as the remaining officers fired their weapons to scare off the animals. After several tense moments, the bears retreated into the forest, leaving destruction and horror in their wake. The aftermath of the grizzly bear attack on the Verkhoyansk police station was devastating. The once quiet outpost had become a scene of chaos and grief. The snow around the station was stained with blood, and broken furniture, shattered glass, and splintered wood marked the site of the bears' rampage. The air was heavy with shock as the remaining officers worked to stabilize the wounded and make sense of the tragedy. Sergeant Alexei Ivanov lay motionless in the snow, his uniform torn and his body battered by the attack. He had succumbed to his injuries before any help could arrive. Nearby, Officer Dmitry Petrov, although gravely wounded, was still alive. His injuries included deep lacerations across his chest and arms, with blood soaking through makeshift bandages applied by his fellow officers. A third officer, who had been thrown aside during the attack, suffered a fractured leg but managed to crawl to safety before losing consciousness. Emergency services were called immediately, but the town's remote location meant that help was hours away. The officers remaining at the station tried their best to treat Petrov and the injured officer while securing the station from further danger. They set up barricades and posted guards at the entrance, fearing the bears might return. When paramedics and wildlife authorities arrived later that evening, they found a devastated team grappling with the loss of their colleague and the overwhelming trauma of the event. Petrov was airlifted to the nearest hospital in Yakutsk, where he underwent emergency surgery. His survival remained uncertain as doctors worked to repair the damage caused by the bear's claws. Wildlife officers immediately began tracking the bears responsible for the attack. The trail led deep into the forest, where the animals were eventually located and shot. Investigations revealed that the bears had likely been drawn to the station by the scent of improperly disposed food waste. The harsh winter had reduced the availability of natural prey, making the bears more aggressive in their search for sustenance. The small community of Verkhoyansk was left in mourning. Sergeant Ivanov, a beloved figure in the town, was honored with a memorial service attended by residents and colleagues. His death left a deep void in the hearts of those who knew him. Petrov's recovery, though slow and uncertain, became a symbol of hope for the shaken officers. The incident prompted immediate changes in safety protocols. The police station implemented strict waste disposal measures to prevent future wildlife encounters. Local authorities also conducted workshops to educate residents on avoiding bear encounters and responding to dangerous situations. The attack served as a grim reminder of the delicate balance between human settlements and the natural world. In Verkhoyansk, where the wilderness is both a source of awe and a constant threat, the memory of January 6, 2025 would not fade quickly. The community's resilience and efforts to prevent such tragedies in the future became a testament to their determination to coexist with the powerful forces of nature. On a crisp October morning in 2008, Mark Harris, a seasoned television journalist, found himself in the rugged wilderness of Montana. Known for his charismatic style and passion for storytelling, Mark was no stranger to nature. Over the years, he had traveled the globe, reporting on environmental issues and wildlife conservation. This time, he was on assignment for a live segment of a popular nature show, aiming to bring viewers a closer look at the majestic grizzly bears of North America. Mark's career had always been driven by curiosity. Born and raised in Denver, Colorado, he grew up exploring the Rocky Mountains with his father, a wildlife photographer. His early exposure to the beauty and unpredictability of nature shaped his love for the outdoors. After earning a degree in journalism, Mark pursued a career that combined his passion for storytelling and wildlife. By 2008, he was a respected name in his field, known for his commitment to educating the public about nature's wonders and its dangers. For this particular segment, Mark had spent days in the wilderness with a small, dedicated crew. Their base was near the Absaroka Beartooth Wilderness, a vast and untamed expanse in Montana. This region was home to one of the largest grizzly bear populations in the United States. The team had been tracking a bear for 3 days, hoping to capture close-up footage of its behavior. Their goal was to provide viewers with a rare glimpse into the life of this iconic predator, while emphasizing the importance of coexisting with wildlife. As the crew prepared for the live broadcast, the atmosphere was a mix of excitement and tension. The team had spotted a large grizzly earlier that morning, and Mark was eager to bring the majestic creature into focus for his audience. The plan was simple but risky. Stay at a safe distance while filming and avoid any sudden movements that might disturb the bear. When the broadcast began, Mark stood against the backdrop of towering pines and rugged peaks. His voice was calm and steady as he described the grizzly's habitat and behavior. Just as he was explaining the bear's role in the ecosystem, a large figure emerged from the shadows. A grizzly bear, drawn by curiosity, ambled into view, its massive frame and shaggy coat commanding attention. Mark continued speaking, trying to maintain his composure while signaling the crew to stay still. The bear paused, sniffing the air, and then started moving toward them. The crew froze, hoping the animal would lose interest and wander away. But as Mark adjusted his camera for a clearer shot, the movement startled the bear. In an instant, the grizzly charged, covering the distance between them with terrifying speed. Mark barely had time to react before the animal knocked him to the ground. His shoulder and arm were grazed by the bear's claws, leaving shallow wounds. The camera, still rolling, captured the heart-stopping moment as the crew scrambled to distract the bear and help Mark. Their quick thinking saved his life. The injuries he sustained were minor, but the encounter left everyone shaken. The bear eventually retreated, leaving the team in stunned silence. The footage, though horrifying, became a stark reminder of the risks involved in interacting with wildlife. The aftermath of the encounter left an indelible mark on Mark Harris and his team. As the grizzly disappeared back into the dense forest, the group worked quickly to assess the situation. Mark was shaken, but managed to sit up with the help of his crew. His grazed shoulder and arm bled lightly, but the wounds were not deep. Despite the physical injuries being minor, the emotional toll of the event was far greater. The team realized the gravity of what had just occurred. They were not only documenting nature, but had also become part of its unpredictable dangers. The broadcast, which continued recording through the chaos, had captured every terrifying second of the bear's charge and Mark's narrow escape. Though unplanned, the footage was destined to become a stark reminder of the risks involved in such assignments. As soon as Mark's condition was stable, the crew made their way back to the nearest ranger station. It was a long journey over rough terrain, with everyone remaining on high alert, fearing another possible encounter with wildlife. When they finally reached safety, the park rangers provided first aid and took a detailed report of the incident. The rangers explained that such aggressive behavior in grizzlies was uncommon unless the bear felt threatened or startled. They suspected the animal had been drawn to the crew by unfamiliar smells or movements. The footage, once reviewed, revealed the full intensity of the moment. It showed the bear's calculated movements, the swift charge, and the chaos that followed. This visual documentation quickly gained attention, first among colleagues in the wildlife filming community, and then across news platforms worldwide. When the segment aired, it sparked a massive conversation about the ethics and safety of interacting with wildlife for entertainment and education. Mark became the center of this discussion. While some praised his bravery and dedication, others criticized the risks involved in the team's methods. The incident led to a reassessment of safety protocols for filming wildlife. Experts stressed the importance of maintaining greater distances from animals and using long-range equipment to minimize direct interaction. For Mark, the experience was transformative. Though he continued his career in wildlife journalism, he approached future assignments with greater caution. He used the encounter as a teaching moment, emphasizing the need for respect and distance when engaging with the natural world. The impact of the footage was not limited to the world of journalism. Conservationists used it to highlight the challenges of human-wildlife coexistence. The footage served as a reminder that while nature's beauty is captivating, its power and unpredictability demand respect. In the small community near the filming location, the incident also led to changes. The park authorities launched new guidelines for visitors and professionals working in the area, including stricter rules about approaching wildlife. Informational campaigns were introduced to educate tourists and filmmakers about the importance of minimizing disturbances to animals in their natural habitat. Though the encounter was brief, its effects rippled far and wide. Mark's minor injuries healed, but the lessons he learned shaped his work and advocacy for years to come. The Grizzly encounter remained a vivid reminder of the fine line between admiration and intrusion in the wild. On August 20th, 2021, Jack Simmons, a seasoned fisherman from Anchorage, Alaska, ventured into the rugged wilderness for what he expected to be a routine day by the river. Jack, 50 years old, had spent much of his life exploring Alaska's remote landscapes, with fishing as both his livelihood and passion. The pristine rivers and untamed beauty of the state had always been his solace. On this particular day, Jack set out for the Kobuk River, a location he often described as one of the best fishing spots he had ever known. Jack's journey began early in the morning. Armed with his fishing rod, tackle box, and a small cooler of supplies, he navigated the winding dirt trails that led to the riverbank. The Kobuk River was nestled deep within a forested area, surrounded by towering trees and thick brush. Its isolation made it an ideal spot for catching salmon, but it also meant the area was a habitat for wildlife, including bears. Jack was familiar with the risks, but his experience had made him confident in his ability to stay safe. As the sun rose higher in the sky, Jack set up his gear near a quiet bend in the river. The water was crystal clear, and the gentle sound of the current created a peaceful atmosphere. Hours passed as Jack focused on his task, casting his line and reeling in a few modest catches. He was alone, miles from the nearest road or human activity. It was the solitude he cherished most about his trips, unaware of the danger that lurked nearby. Suddenly, Jack became aware of a rustling sound coming from the dense brush behind him. He paused, scanning the area, but saw nothing. Thinking it might be the wind or a small animal, he returned to fishing. Moments later, the sound grew louder. Before he could react, a massive brown bear emerged from the undergrowth. It was close, its sheer size and presence overwhelming. Jack froze in shock, realizing the bear had likely been drawn by the scent of fish. The bear's charge was immediate and relentless. It lunged toward Jack, knocking him off his feet and into the cold, rushing water. Jack tried to fend off the bear with his fishing pole, but the bear's strength overpowered him. The struggle was brief, yet brutal. The bear mauled Jack, tearing into his flesh with its powerful jaws and claws. The attack continued as the bear dragged Jack underwater, its ferocity leaving no chance for escape. When the river grew quiet again, the only evidence of the tragedy was the scattered remnants of Jack's fishing gear along the shore. Hours later, other fishermen arrived at the site and made the grim discovery. Jack's lifeless body was found partially submerged in the river, marked by the devastating injuries inflicted during the attack. Wildlife officials were immediately notified, and the community was left in shock over the loss of a man so deeply connected to the wilderness. Wildlife officials arrived at the Kobuk River soon after the fishermen reported the tragic discovery. The area was cordoned off, and a team began investigating the scene to understand what had occurred. Jack's body, marked with deep injuries from the bear's powerful jaws and claws, was carefully retrieved from the river. The officials noted signs of a violent struggle along the riverbank, with scattered fishing equipment and bear tracks clearly visible in the muddy ground. These clues painted a vivid picture of the harrowing moments leading to Jack's death. News of the attack spread rapidly through the local community and beyond. Anchorage residents who were familiar with Jack's love for the wilderness were heartbroken. For years, Jack had been a respected member of the fishing community, known for his knowledge of Alaska's rivers and his friendly, approachable nature. His loss left a deep void, and many struggled to come to terms with the sudden and violent nature of his death. Wildlife authorities quickly launched an effort to locate the bear responsible for the attack. Given the proximity of the site to other fishing spots, officials feared the bear might pose a continued threat to humans. Trained trackers, equipped with tranquilizers and firearms, followed the trail left by the animal. The bear's tracks led them deep into the forest, where they eventually encountered the massive brown bear. Despite attempts to safely tranquilize it, the bear displayed aggressive behavior. The bear was ultimately shot and killed by officials to prevent further attacks. The incident sparked widespread discussions about safety in bear country. Alaska, with its vast wilderness, is home to thousands of brown bears, and encounters with humans, while rare, can be deadly. Experts pointed out that the increasing popularity of remote fishing and outdoor activities had heightened the chances of such confrontations. Local authorities began emphasizing the importance of bear safety measures, such as carrying bear spray and making noise to avoid surprising animals. A memorial service was held for Jack, with family, friends, and members of the fishing community gathering to honor his life. Stories of his adventures, kindness, and dedication to his craft were shared, and many reflected on the risks that come with living so close to nature. Jack's death became a somber reminder of the delicate balance between humans and wildlife in Alaska. Efforts to improve safety along the Kobuk River and similar areas were soon implemented. Signs warning of bear activity were erected, and permits for fishing in remote locations began to require mandatory safety briefings. These measures aimed to prevent future tragedies and ensure that people entering bear habitats were better prepared. Though Jack's loss could never be undone, his story became a catalyst for change, encouraging others to respect the power of nature while enjoying its beauty. In the small town of Helena, Montana, on the night of September 12, 2014, Rick Lawson, the owner of a popular local restaurant, was finishing up his long day. His restaurant, nestled in a cozy corner of town, was known for its hearty meals and friendly atmosphere. Rick, a hardworking man in his early 40s, had been running the place for nearly a decade. He was well liked by both his customers and his staff, always going the extra mile to ensure everyone felt welcome. After a busy day of serving meals, he stayed behind to lock up the restaurant and get ready for another day. It was late, and the streets were quiet. The cool evening air hinted at the arrival of fall. As Rick made his way to his truck, he noticed something strange. The smell of food wafting from the restaurant's kitchen. Although he had already cleaned up, some scraps had been left outside. Unknown to Rick, this scent had attracted a hungry bear that had wandered out of the nearby woods. The bear, drawn to the food, had been quietly moving closer to the restaurant. As Rick approached his truck, about to head home, he suddenly spotted the massive shape of the bear emerging from the shadows. His heart raced as he quickly honked his car horn, hoping to scare the animal away. But the bear, feeling threatened or perhaps simply more curious, wasn't frightened. Instead, it charged straight toward him with terrifying speed. Rick's instincts kicked in. He leaped into his truck, slamming the door shut behind him, but the bear was relentless. It slammed its body against the truck, its claws scraping the metal. Rick's eyes widened in fear as he realized the bear wasn't going to back off. With incredible strength, the bear ripped the door off the truck, pulling it from the frame. The vehicle rocked as the bear grabbed Rick by the arm, dragging him out of the safety of the truck. Panic surged through Rick as the bear's claws raked across his skin and its teeth sank into his flesh. Despite the pain, Rick fought back with everything he had, desperate to survive. He reached for his emergency flare gun, his hands trembling from the shock and blood loss. With a loud pop, the flare shot into the night sky, its bright light startling the bear. The bear, confused and frightened by the sudden flash, retreated, but not before leaving Rick badly injured. Rick, covered in blood and struggling to breathe, was left shaken and in shock. His survival was nothing short of a miracle. The bear, now retreating into the dark, left him alone, but the trauma of the attack lingered. Rick was rushed to the hospital where he was treated for several deep wounds. His injuries were severe but not life-threatening, and after a lengthy recovery, he eventually returned to his restaurant. However, the attack changed Rick forever. He became deeply fearful of wildlife encroaching on human spaces. What had once been a peaceful town now felt dangerous to him, and the close call made him more cautious, especially at night. The fear he experienced that evening remained with him long after the bear had been driven away. Rick's life was forever changed after the bear attack. The physical scars on his body healed over time, but the emotional impact remained. He found it hard to walk past his truck without remembering the terrifying moments when the bear had ripped the door off. The quiet streets of Helena, once comforting, now seemed full of potential dangers. Every rustle in the trees or shadow that moved too quickly made Rick's heart race, and the sight of food scraps left behind outside the restaurant always made him nervous. He began to take extra precautions to keep the area around his business clean, ensuring that there were no leftover food or anything that might attract wildlife. His recovery, both physically and emotionally, was slow. The wounds from the bear's claws and teeth took months to heal, but the mental trauma lingered much longer. Rick could no longer enjoy his nightly routine of locking up the restaurant without feeling a sense of dread. Every time he stepped outside into the quiet of the night, he was haunted by the memory of the bear's strength and the terror that had surged through him as it dragged him from the safety of his truck. Rick's story soon spread throughout Helena. It was a shocking event for the small town, where wildlife encounters were rare but not unheard of. Locals talked about the attack in hushed tones, and Rick became known as the man who survived a bear mauling. While some admired his courage, others couldn't help but wonder if something had changed in the bear's behavior. People began to ask questions about why the bear had acted so aggressively, and whether it was becoming more common for wildlife to wander closer to human settlements. The authorities conducted an investigation into the attack. They tracked the bear, and after confirming it was the same one that had attacked Rick, wildlife officials found it and killed it, deeming it a serious threat to humans. This action was met with mixed feelings in the community. While many agreed with the decision, there were also those who were upset by the death of the bear. They felt that wildlife should be protected, and that the bear had simply been following its instincts. Nonetheless, the bear was removed, and the town was left to grapple with the reality that such an encounter could happen again. Rick's business suffered for a time. His employees noticed that fewer people were coming in for meals, and those who did seemed nervous, constantly looking over their shoulders as if expecting another attack. Rick understood their fears, but also knew he couldn't let them control his life. Slowly, he began to rebuild his trust in the world around him. He increased security around the restaurant, and even hired a wildlife expert to educate both his staff and his customers on how to stay safe when living near the wilderness. Despite the trauma, Rick remained in Helena. He chose to continue running his restaurant, but with a heightened awareness of the dangers that nature could bring. Though he had survived the attack, the experience had changed him deeply. He no longer saw the world in the same way. Every day felt like a reminder that the line between human and wildlife territories was thinner than most people realized. But through it all, Rick found a sense of resilience. His strength was no longer just about surviving the attack. It was about moving forward, carrying the lessons he had learned, and making sure that no one else would face the same terrifying experience he had endured. On November 5th, 2019, two experienced hunters, Tom and Mike, found themselves in the vast and unforgiving wilderness of Alberta, Canada. The pair were seasoned outdoorsmen, well accustomed to the harsh conditions of the forest, and had been working together for years. They were in the middle of setting traps for game when the unexpected happened. The quiet of the wilderness was broken by the sound of leaves rustling, followed by the heavy footfalls of an animal moving through the trees. Before either Tom or Mike could react, a large grizzly bear emerged from the brush, clearly startled by the presence of the men. Tom and Mike, who had spent countless hours hunting in the wilderness, were not easily startled. They had encountered wildlife before, but nothing prepared them for the sheer size and aggression of the grizzly. The bear, sensing danger and feeling threatened, immediately charged at them. Mike, reacting quickly, attempted to flee, his heart pounding as the massive bear sprinted toward him. He tried to make his way through the thick underbrush, hoping to outrun the predator, but the bear was too fast. In an instant, it caught up with him, knocking him to the ground. The bear then began mauling him, tearing into his flesh with its sharp claws and powerful jaws. Mike struggled to break free, but the grizzly's strength was overwhelming. Tom, witnessing the brutal attack, quickly reached for his rifle. But as his fingers fumbled in panic, his rifle jammed, rendering it useless in the face of the bear's onslaught. Tom realized that he was on his own. The bear, now enraged and undeterred by Mike's attempt to escape, turned its attention to him. Tom tried to retreat, but the grizzly was too quick. It charged at him, knocking him to the ground with terrifying force. The bear's jaws clamped down on Tom's abdomen, and it began to tear into his flesh, each strike sending waves of pain through his body. Tom tried to fight back, but his strength was fading fast. Mike, badly injured and in immense pain, managed to crawl away, dragging himself through the dense foliage in a desperate attempt to escape. But it was too late. The bear had already claimed both men. Their bodies were discovered days later, lifeless and torn apart by the ferocious attack. The authorities were called in to investigate, and after tracking the bear to its location, they killed it, deeming it a public danger. The deaths of Tom and Mike shocked the tight-knit hunting community in Alberta, and the news spread quickly, leaving the town in mourning. The attack served as a stark reminder of how unpredictable and dangerous wildlife could be, even for those with years of experience in the wilderness. The news of Tom and Mike's deaths spread quickly, leaving the entire community in shock. Both men had been well known in the area, not only for their skills as hunters, but also for their friendly and helpful nature. The people in the small town where they lived mourned the loss of two respected members of their community. The attack was hard to believe, as many had always thought of grizzly bears as more elusive and peaceful creatures. No one had expected such a deadly encounter to occur so close to home. The authorities took immediate action following the tragic deaths. Wildlife officials, alongside local law enforcement, began investigating the circumstances of the attack. They quickly set out to track the bear responsible, using the evidence from the scene of the attack. The authorities knew that the grizzly bear had to be located and dealt with, as it was deemed a serious threat to the safety of the public. The bear was tracked through the wilderness, and after a few days it was found and killed. The death of the bear sparked a debate in the community. Some people felt that the bear had simply been acting out of instinct, while others were angry that the bear had been killed. They argued that it was a tragedy for both the hunters and the bear. However, most agreed that the safety of humans had to come first. The bear's actions had shown that it was a danger to people, and it had to be removed to prevent further attacks. In the aftermath of the attack, the local authorities reassessed their wildlife safety protocols. They began taking extra precautions to protect hunters, hikers, and others who ventured into the wilderness. New signs were put up in popular areas, warning people about the potential dangers of wildlife, especially grizzly bears. The authorities also worked to educate the public on how to react if they encountered a bear, and they increased the presence of wildlife officers in the area. For the families of Tom and Mike, the grief was overwhelming. They had lost two men who were loved and respected by everyone around them. The tragedy affected not just their families, but also the entire community. Many of the locals knew that it was impossible to predict the behavior of wildlife, but the attack left them questioning how safe they truly were in the wilderness they had long trusted. The loss was deeply felt by all, and the memory of Tom and Mike lived on in the hearts of the people who knew them best. The bear attack became a stark reminder of the unpredictable nature of the wild. It showed just how quickly things could turn dangerous, even for experienced hunters. The deaths of Tom and Mike served as a tragic lesson that while the wilderness can be beautiful, it can also be deadly, and respect for wildlife is always necessary. In 2010, on a cool morning in the dense forests of British Columbia, Canada, Emily Dawson was out for her regular run. She was a seasoned marathoner, known for her speed, endurance, and determination. Emily had been training for years, running in all sorts of conditions, but this particular day would test her in ways she had never imagined. Born and raised in Vancouver, Emily had always been active. From a young age, she loved running and joined local competitions. As she grew older, her passion for marathon running only increased. Over the years, she had participated in numerous races, always finishing with strong times. Her training regimen was intense, and she often ran in remote areas to challenge herself and to escape the busyness of city life. The forests of British Columbia, with their lush greenery and quiet trails, were one of her favorite places to train. She often ran alone, feeling at peace in the natural surroundings, where she could focus solely on her pace and endurance. On that particular morning in 2010, Emily was running on a narrow, winding trail that cut through a thick fog. The mist hung heavily in the air, making it hard to see far ahead. The forest seemed eerily quiet, and the usual sounds of birds and rustling leaves were drowned out by the thick, gray fog. Emily, however, was used to this. She had run in various weather conditions, and fog didn't bother her much. She was focused on keeping a steady pace, her eyes fixed on the trail ahead. The cool air and the soft sound of her footsteps made her feel alive. What Emily didn't know was that she wasn't alone. Just behind her, a grizzly bear had recently become habituated to humans in the area. The bear had been drawn by the sounds of her running and had been following her for some time. At first, the bear kept its distance, curious about this fast-moving creature. The grizzly, used to humans passing through its territory, didn't immediately view Emily as a threat. But as Emily picked up speed, the bear grew more interested, sensing movement that caught its attention. It wasn't until Emily noticed the bear's presence that the situation began to change. At first, she thought it was just a trick of the mist, but soon she realized that the sound of heavy footsteps behind her wasn't just the wind. The bear was gaining on her. Panic surged through her. She tried to increase her speed, but the fog made it difficult to see the path ahead, and she stumbled over a loose rock. This gave the bear the opening it needed. The grizzly, sensing its chance, charged at Emily with terrifying speed. She had no time to react. As the bear came closer, Emily knew she had to think fast. She remembered advice she had heard about how to deal with bear encounters. In her last-ditch effort to save herself, Emily quickly dropped to the ground and played dead. She lay still, hoping the bear would lose interest and walk away. The seconds felt like hours as she tried to remain calm, not moving a muscle. The bear sniffed her, and for a few moments it seemed unsure of what to do. Then, after what felt like an eternity, the grizzly eventually lost interest and retreated into the fog, leaving Emily lying on the ground, battered but alive. Emily lay on the ground for a few moments, still unsure if the bear had truly gone. The mist still lingered heavily around her, but the sound of the bear's heavy footsteps faded into the distance. Slowly, she lifted her head and scanned the area, her heart still racing. The bear was nowhere to be seen. It had left, but Emily knew she couldn't let her guard down just yet. The fear and adrenaline that coursed through her body were overwhelming. Her legs felt weak as she pushed herself up. Scratches and bruises covered her arms and legs, reminders of her frantic fall during the chase. Her breathing was ragged, and her body ached from the strain of the encounter. As she stood up, she realized just how close she had come to disaster. A moment of hesitation or a wrong move could have meant a very different outcome. She took several deep breaths, trying to calm herself and regain some sense of control. She knew she had to get out of the forest as quickly as possible. The bear could return at any time, and she wasn't willing to take that risk again. As she started to walk, she noticed the fog was still thick around her, but now it felt like a cold, suffocating weight. The quiet of the forest, once peaceful and calming, now felt oppressive. Emily's mind raced with thoughts of what had just happened. It was something she had never imagined during her years of running. She had trained in many different places, but nothing had prepared her for a dangerous encounter like this. Every step felt harder than the last. Emily's body was in shock, and the fear still gripped her, making it difficult to focus on the path ahead. She stumbled a few times but managed to keep moving. As the minutes passed, the adrenaline began to wear off and the full weight of the experience began to set in. Her legs were shaking and the scratches on her body stung with every movement. Eventually, she reached the edge of the forest where the trail met a clearing. The sunlight pierced through the fog, making it easier to see. Emily felt a slight sense of relief, but the fear still lingered in the back of her mind. She had made it out, but she couldn't shake the feeling that the bear was still out there, watching her from the shadows. Her training had taught her how to handle difficult runs, but it hadn't prepared her for the reality of encountering a bear in the wild. As she made her way back to her car, the experience changed something inside her. Emily had always been a confident runner, used to pushing her limits and overcoming challenges. But this encounter with the bear was different. It wasn't just physical strength or speed that had saved her. It was her knowledge of wildlife and her ability to stay calm under pressure. However, the fear she had felt would not easily fade. The encounter left a mark on her, both physically and mentally. She would never run through those forests in the same way again. The experience had taught her about the unpredictable nature of wildlife and how quickly a peaceful run could turn into a life-threatening situation. Emily continued with her training, but the shadow of the bear would remain with her, always in the back of her mind as she ran through the forests of British Columbia. The close call had changed her view of nature, making her more aware of the dangers that could be lurking just beyond the trail.